it's one of those, you can do it, but we're not going to know if any of that's successful for years.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. What I've said on that, if we can change some things up, and I'm not, I don't think I'm going to be like Morgan Freeman and Stand By Me. I'm not Crazy Joe.
Yeah.
But it's just going to, if I can get 10% of those kids that come to me that don't repeat and don't come back to me or don't end up in that district court, then I would consider that wildly successful.
And and we're going to start the podcast, I promise, Judge.
Sure.
But I'm just thinking, when you help that one child, you are helping, or the 10%.
It is a generational change.
It's generational change.
It
Yes.
is. Because you're not only affecting that kid, again, if you do it, you're affecting that kid, and hopefully you get him out of that situation, you get him in the workforce, you get him, make him productive, him or her, but then their kids, hopefully that cycle's broken.
Yes.
So that's,
Yeah, that's the
we'll
goal.
see. Well, that's the goal.
That is
That's
the
the
absolute goal. Yes.
So we'll see. We're early stages of that, and we'll kind of see how it works, and hopefully expand it out from there. But yeah, the good thing with Lamar, all of that stuff is totally free.
That's the great thing.
It won't cost the county.
Yes.
Won't cost the taxpayers a dime. All their services are free.
Makes me proud to be able to LU and alum.
Me too. Go Cards. I graduated from there. My wife did. My son did.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my daughter plans on going next year. So yeah, go Cards.
Go Cards. Go Cards.
Let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry. Consulted, so inspired.
Well, hello. My name is Crystal Petry, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast. On today's episode, I have Judge Gordon Friesz, and we are going to learn all about family court. So welcome to the podcast,
Thank
Judge.
you for having me, Crystal. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are a family court judge. Kind of generally explain to us what it is you do.
So in Jefferson County, we have two dedicated family courts, and those courts hear all of the divorces, custody cases, protective orders, anything regarding family law. The other two, I guess, special things these courts hear. One, these courts hear CPS cases, and these courts hear juvenile cases.
Okay.
So between the two courts, we split the divorce caseload. We split the custody caseload. I handle all of the protective orders in the county for the most part, and I handle all of the juvenile criminal cases in the county. Judge Shelton's court, the 279th, he hears all of the CPS, but that's how we kind of divide the labor, so to speak.
Okay.
And what these two courts do is all of the family law related matters in the county.
How long have you been a judge in family court?
A shade under 2 years. I was
Wow.
elected in November of 2022. I started on January 1st, 2023. So I'm finishing up about the halfway point in my first 4-year. What I hope is only my first 4-year term,
Right.
and there will be others. But yeah, I'm about 2 years into my term.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. So as you alluded to, your position is an elected
Yes.
position, correct?
Yes.
And what is that term?
4-year term.
Every 4
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
And so every 4 years you are up for
I'm up
re-election?
for re-election every 4 years.
Is there-
I'll be up in November of 2026.
Okay.
Will be when I'm up for re-election.
Is there a term limit for?
There's not.
Okay.
There's not.
Excellent. So, what inspired you, Judge, to get into the criminal justice world, I guess?
Well, so I taught school initially out of college, did that for several years. Knew I didn't want to chase kids on a football field or basketball court at 50 and 60 years old, and decided to go to law school. I had worked for a couple really good lawyers in college.
Okay.
One of them was Elizabeth Pettit, who was, for my money, maybe the best family lawyer I've ever been around. And I worked for her, and her husband was also a family lawyer, worked for them in college. And so I kind of realized, knew if the money was good, I'd probably still be coaching basketball, But I knew if I was ever going to make a change, it was going to be into this.
Okay.
So went to law school, attended law school, did the part-time program while I was still teaching school, finished, and then worked for a couple of firms doing some business and insurance type stuff. Wasn't really the fit that I wanted, and kind of gravitated over to the family law from there.
Okay. What would you say is the most, or give me a couple examples of the most rewarding thing about being in family court?
Oh, you really get the opportunity to be a problem solver for these people. When the people that come to us in these cases, I got to be careful. The one really good thing we get to do here is adoptions.
Okay.
Barring that, most time when people are here, it is not a good situation.
Okay.
Their marriage is breaking down. There's problems with their kids. There's problems with custody. If it's CPS, they have the state that's alleging they did something wrong with their kids.
Right.
If they're in court with their juveniles, so you're getting people in one of their weakest moments in their life. They see their family crumbling. Then they're gonna, you might have one paying child support. They're having to split their assets. Their whole world, as they've had it before, is kind of crumbling around them. And so here, you get the opportunity to really solve some problems. I without disparaging the other courts, because all of them are important, but like with the civil ones, you have a car wreck case, or you have, and all of those are important, and everybody needs their day in court and their issues, but they aren't always an emergent or an exigent issue. Here, you're dealing with things in people's real lives, and you have an opportunity. I might not be able to fix it, but can I help you get on the best path possible so that when you leave me and you leave the court, have I put you on maybe a little bit better spot than you were before you got here?
Right.
And that's, I think that's one of the draws to family law. You really do get the chance to kind of affect change in people's lives, and have an impact with them if you do things right.
And how do you know that you've had an impact?
That's a wonderful question and a hard one to answer, because a lot of the times here, there's no crossing the end zone and spiking the football.
Right.
They finish their case and the divorce is over and their marriage is over. So nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Or if a custody case, But if you can have, to me, if you can have the litigants, and especially parents, where they can at least communicate with each other where they weren't before,
Right.
then that is, to me, wildly successful. And really, you don't see what that impact may be until years down the road. For me, what I am seeing, though, if we do a divorce and they don't come back on a modification because they're able to co-parent and deal with their children, then that's a win. When it's a problem is, okay, I did your divorce, and 6 months or a year later, you're back here arguing about something else.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
like, okay, we have to go back to the drawing board and see if we can get you in a better position.
Talk to me about the adoption part of what you do here.
It's, a lot of times what we're doing is taking families apart. But you've got people that are coming in with their divorces are going on and their families are in turmoil. That's the one opportunity we have to put families together. And we do in November, at the end of November of every year, the county does National Adoption Day, and that's a nationwide program. And what we've said for years in the county and the Bar Association, it's the best day of the year. It's the one thing where people get to come in and there's just an absolute good that happens. And you've got children that have been, a lot of those Adoption Day proceedings, they're children who their parents were in CPS, their parents' rights have been terminated, drug use, neglect, abuse, whatever it may be. And it really is kind of a new beginning for those kids. You've got new parents that are willing to take on children who have been through hell, just being blunt and honest. And it's a new start for those kids. And with parents that know I'm going to have a very long road coming up with some kids that are, have been through more than most adults ever will in their lives. But it's, that is, I've got, I'll show you when we leave, I take pictures of all the adoptions.
Oh,
And I've got 3 bulletin boards I'm working on for all the adoptions that we do. And so, yeah, that's, if I'm gonna have a legacy, so to speak, hopefully it'll be that, hey, it's these children and those families that everything changed for them when they came, not that I did it, but just be able to play a small part in that.
Absolutely.
To, for that day that everything kind of changed for those people.
Absolutely. We have some very close family friends, and they adopted 2 daughters. They were sisters. They adopted both of them. And it has just made our life complete. It is just such an amazing opportunity, just like you said, for the children, for the adults, to have an absolute complete family.
The people that do that put themselves out there and adopt, I mean, that's, they're angels.
They are.
They are.
They are angels walking amongst us.
Yes, they are.
Now, one of the things that our family friends talk about with adoption, I don't think a lot of people know about it. I know, especially in Texas, if you adopt, then the state of Texas will pay for the children to go to college, correct?
There are some provisions, and there's some CPS provisions. If there's a child that their parents' rights are terminated through a CPS case, and you have a placement that comes related to that, and that placement adopts, and there's some criteria you've got to follow, and I wouldn't pretend to know all of them.
Right.
But yeah, there are some benefits, some lifetime benefits for those children. There's some post-adoption services if the children still need counseling. The state and CPS will help with that. They'll help with some other things. But there's some tuition assistance available. And that's, I've been able to talk to some people that have gone through that, and they said it's just it's a life-changing thing for that child to be able to get out of the situation they were in, be adopted, and then we're going to put them in a position where their college is paid for. And it's just
amazing.
Incredible.
So what you deal with, Judge, in family court, I would assume that it's very emotional. Very emotional. How do you remain impartial during those emotionally trying cases?
I see, and I talked about in the campaign, and it's really kind of, I've seen that come to fruition here. A big part of the judge's role in family court is, one, to be impartial, but also to be, hopefully, a calming influence on everybody else. Because you've got 2 parties, you've got mother, father, husband, wife, whatever it is. They're in here, they're mad at each other. You've got the lawyers who adopt their client's case in persona, and the lawyers are mad at each other. If the judge is mad at everybody too, there's nobody that's kind of that counterbalance, so to speak. So I think a big part of our job as a judge of a family court is to be kind of that calming influence and just say, okay, look, I get it. That, and I tell them all the time, the parties, I'm not here to put you back together. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a pastor. I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm not doing counseling. I'm here to preside over your case and help you get it settled or resolved as best as possible.
Right.
And, I don't, and what I tell them is, I don't expect you to like each other. There's a reason you're here. But I need you to respect each other. And I need you to respect each other, respect the court, and respect, especially if you have children, respect your children. And understand the 2 of you, y'all can not like each other all you want, but please don't get in a position where you hate each other more than you love your children.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a lot of times it's just reminding people of what the bigger picture is. Yes, there's your fight, and I get it, and I'm going to help you resolve that. I'll make rulings on it. I'll make decisions. I'm going to order you to mediation. I'm going to try and get you to work it out. But a lot of it is just reminding them, okay, don't get so tunnel vision, about your argument with this other person that you forget there's little people involved that need both of you.
Right. And just kind of stand on the emotional part. How do you, as a human being, carry that burden, that emotional burden?
I've had, and I don't want to sound like I'm some robot, but I think to do family law, and especially on the bench, you have to have the ability to be able to separate yourself from it. And so, I'm not like Spock on Star Trek now, but I look, you have to just understand, and a lot of it's just empathy, understanding that what these people are going through, and have an understanding that this is emotionally charged. But for me, even going back to when I practiced, I was able to separate, how emotional it is for everybody else versus for me. Okay. And I think as a lawyer and the judge too, you have to do that. Because if you have upset, angry people, and I'm upset and angry too as the lawyer, there's no voice of reason, so to speak. And so it's hard. And there were times as a lawyer that I'd have a case where children were had been hurt and injured, and you're only human, but you got to try as best you can just to separate yourself from it, and can't bring it home.
Yeah.
You can't bring it home, and it's hard. My wife is very, very loving and understanding, and is a wonderful sounding board for some of the things that I see and hear. But I try the best I can to just okay, it's here. I have to deal with it. And let these people know there's here's how we're going to handle your case. But all right, step back and understand it's their case. And because if you get too emotionally involved in them, I think it starts to cloud your judgment.
Then you're no help for anyone.
You're no help for anybody. I agree with that.
Right. So, Judge Friesz, you are in Jefferson County, Texas, family court. What would you say are some misconceptions about family court here?
I would say that it's here, but this is also a statewide one.
Okay.
The biggest one is that mothers always get custody. That is.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
That is the. It's not. That's not the case. Now,
Okay.
Look, perception is reality, and there's a reason when there's things that have happened for years why that perception is there. And yes, many years ago you had, when we were a little more patriarchal society, and you had dad went to work and mom took care of the children, and yes, that's what kind of where society was more at that. If you want to look 50, 60, 70 years ago. And usually when there was a case, mother got custody. I would say in probably percentage-wise, there's probably more mothers that end up being the primary conservator at the end of a case, but it's not because of a bias against dads. It's more when we get these cases brought to us, we have to look at what have you historically done.
Okay.
What has been the, for lack of a better term, division of labor between the parents with these children. And in a lot of cases, in most, it is the mother that is more the nurturer and does more of the hands-on stuff. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, it's not. That's not exclusively the case anymore.
You're correct.
And so, I like to think that I've kept a very open mind. I've had many, many men that I've awarded to be the primary conservator when the case was over, and looking at all the facts and circumstances, they were either more involved than the mother was during the course of their relationship, or that person was a better option for that child at the end of the case.
Wow, okay. What strategies, Judge, would you say you use when it comes to prioritizing cases that deal with children?
Well, what the Texas Family Code tells us is we are supposed to determine the best interest of the child. And, the thing I learn more and more the longer I do this, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to that. Families are different, circumstances are different, households are different, things, customs, traditions are different for different people, different families. And it's just discerning, what's best for that child and that family, as opposed to some kind of one-size-fits-all approach. And so you really have to take, in my opinion, a holistic view. What has this family done in the past? What are they going to look like in the future? And, kind of mix all that up, and what is the best interest of that child at the end of the case.
Okay. Do you sit down with the children, or are you able to do that at a certain age for them?
At a certain age, the family code says that at 12 years or older, A parent can request that I speak with the children in chambers for their wishes and desires regarding who their primary conservator would be, where they want to live, and then what some of the terms for visitation may be. So if I'm asked, 12 or older, I have to do that.
Okay.
So we do that. I do that with a court reporter. We type down everything that the kids say so I can reference that later. What I tell those kids and I tell the parents is, you get to give me an opinion. That is what I tell people, going back to when I practiced law, that is the most misunderstood provision in the family code, because people think at 12 kids get to pick where they live. And that is not the case.
Okay.
At 12, children get to talk to the court and tell the court what their preference is, but the court doesn't have to follow that. What I tell these kids when they come in is, okay, if I were to give you a magic pen and you got to write out where you lived, when you went to mom and dad's house, what would it be? And I say, okay, I want you to understand, I respect your opinion. I'm going to take that into account with what I do, but I still have to make the decision within the best interest in the confines of the case.
Right.
And so, yeah, we speak with them probably. We get kids in here maybe once a week or so at least, and then sometimes we'll have a run where there's more. But I just, you try to take into account, you look at their maturity level. I also try to kind of glean how influenced have they been by one parent or both.
Yes.
The kind of the old, did somebody tell you they're going to buy you something
Yeah.
if you tell me
Yes.
this?
Yes.
But no, I take that into account, and I take that very seriously, because I mean, look, they're kids, and they don't want this. They don't want their parents to be divorcing or their home to be going away.
Yes.
And I do. If I ask them, they just want their parents to stay together and get along. Usually we're past that point by now. But, I want to give them the respect of, hey, you deserve an opinion here.
Right.
And you deserve to be heard. But I also let them know that doesn't mean I'm going to do what you tell me.
Say.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you have already cleared up two things for me, because unconsciously I did assume that the mother always got the child. And I assumed that at the age of 12 or 13, when the child came in, that they could tell you, as the judge, this is where I want to stay, and then you would accommodate.
Don't have to.
Wow.
And a lot of times we do. I mean,
Yeah.
because that may be where the case has fallen. That child's just reiterating and telling me where the facts are leading anyway.
Right.
But no, there's a lot of them I've had to tell them. And some of them I've even told them in here when they're here is, I get it, and that's what you're telling me, but it's not going to happen.
Okay. Are there any other misconceptions that you would like to clear up about family court?
Oh my God, I could go on that for days.
That'd be a whole nother podcast.
You get a lot of and I periodically I kind of go down the rabbit trail of looking at the Facebook pages and some of the internet stuff. People, the anti-family court groups, and I get it. When people come in here, you have winners and losers.
Yes.
And so statistically speaking, half the people that walk out of here are going to be unhappy. And, maybe they blame the court, and that's fine. I've got broad shoulders. Most judges that do this do. But one is obviously the bias for mothers. Two is that everybody lies and that nobody gets held accountable. And that's not true. Now, I will say, do most clients and most parties that come in here, do they exaggerate maybe sure. But I think part of that is just experience and figuring out, okay, what's a lie, versus you're just embellishing something to make your case sound better.
Right.
But one of the other misconceptions is that nobody's punished for perjury. And I can say that is absolutely untrue. I had a case about a year ago where I believe, based on the facts and testimony from some other parties, that this woman had lied to this court in an affidavit and on the stand. I got the transcript. I sent that to the sheriff's department and the district attorney's office, and she was indicted for perjury.
Wow. Okay.
And so I made sure to tell all of the lawyers, you better school your clients and let them know that I'm not putting up with that. I'm not going to do it. They take an oath for a reason.
Right.
Everybody does that testifies, and I expect that oath to be followed. Look, if you're saying, well, I take the kid to school more than mom does. Okay, whatever. I'm not excusing that, but
Right.
Their perception may be that I'm more involved. Okay, I can discern that, but when you're telling me something that is patently and verifiably false, and there is evidence of it, and I'm giving you the opportunity. Are you sure? Kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah.
Is that your final answer?
Is that your final answer?
And when you tell me yes, it is, there will be consequences to that. And I've done that, and I've let the lawyers know. You need to make sure your clients understand that if they commit perjury, I'm going to refer it to the DA's office for prosecution.
Do you think that having been a lawyer helps you be a better judge?
Yeah, and we so you have to have a certain number of years experience before you can run.
Okay.
And so I practiced for about 19 years before I got on the bench. Did family law almost exclusively for the last 15. And so it's one of those. There's no amount of practicing law that prepares you for this job. It's because as a lawyer you're an advocate and you see your side of the case.
Right.
As a judge, you have to be able to peel back and look at both sides and layers on both the cases. But there is a certain amount of kind of been there, done that. That okay, I've seen this fact scenario before. I've seen this kind of this pattern of cases before. So it does give you the ability to say, okay, here's what's more than likely happening in this case, and where we're probably going to go when we get to the end of it.
What have you learned about marriage in your divorce cases?
Oh, Lord. So I'll say this, and I've talked about it for years. I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I'm a former divorce lawyer and now family court judge who has been married to the same woman for 28 years.
Okay.
And I do think, I will say, doing this and seeing some of the things that people do to each other has given me a deeper appreciation for my wife and our relationship. But to your question, I think communication is key, and I know that sounds trite, but it's true. I mean, communication is key. I do think there's, and this goes back even to my time as a lawyer, I think there's a lot of people that throw the white flag up and head to lawyers and, start looking at divorce much sooner than they should have. Look, Texas is what's called a no-fault divorce state. You don't have to be able to show grounds that the other party did anything wrong. I have no issue with that. That's not wrong. But, some people, I think some people give up too easily. And I think, rather than, okay, can we communicate with each other? Can we do some things to, counseling? Is there, anything that might be able to help us get back where we need to be? I don't think people, not all, but I think there's some people that don't exhaust those remedies before they get down here.
Right. Do you feel like on the other end of that, people stay together too long?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a sweet spot there. You know what I mean? There's a sweet spot between, okay, there's people that, I'm just going to file for divorce, and then, but the other side of it, hey, we're gonna stick it out for the kids. Or the other one that, and that happens a lot, and that's never a recipe for success. Or financially, sometimes people just can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. There's a balance there between, there's some that stay too long and bitterness and anger, the anger just build, and are people that, versus people that, give up too soon.
Right.
What I used to say when I practiced, and it holds here on the bench, I would say the opposite of love is not hate. It is ambivalence.
Really?
Yes.
Explain.
Well, so my thought always was,
Okay.
if somebody comes in and they're wanting to file for divorce,
Right.
or there's a custody case and they're just spitting flames and vinegar about how angry they are at this person, there's still an emotional attachment there. And not saying they're going to reconcile, but there's still some type of emotion and maybe love there, you know?
Right.
That love turns to, I guess, to anger or resentment if you've been hurt. The ones that I know for sure and knew for sure, even practicing, when they come in and it's like, I'm ready to get divorced. Okay, well, tell me what's going on. I can't live with them anymore. Well, tell me what's going on. I don't care what happens to them. I don't care if they live, they die, they move on. If I never
Wow.
see them, you know,
Yeah.
when you have, and I had an old lawyer I worked for, he used to call that the emotional divorce. When they are emotionally divorced and detached like that, it's over. You know, so that's where I say it's, you know, the opposite of love is not hate, it's ambivalence.
Yeah.
When you are at that ambivalent state where it's like, yeah, I can't live with this person, I don't want to look at them another second, I'm not staying in a house with them, I don't care if they're here or in China, you know,
Yeah.
but just get them away from me. Those are the ones when it's like, yep,
It's time to go.
it's time to go.
It's time to go. Have you noticed during your time on the bench, Judge, like some common causes that lead to the end of marriage?
Social media. Social
Is
media,
it?
social media, social media.
I thought you were going to say communication.
Well, it is, but, okay, I would say the social media is just a symptom of not communicating.
Okay.
You know, so good point, I agree with you. It is ultimately communication, but it's so easy to rekindle with that ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or someone from high school or whatever.
Yes.
And you know, and you can do it clandestinely, and you're doing it, you know, and it mushrooms and it spirals out of control. And we just finished a case this morning, and they were, well, she's doing this and he's doing this, and I'm looking at the evidence. Yeah, you both are. You both are.
On social media, they were.
And then she got his phone and looked through it and saw his text messages and stuff. Yeah. So social media and phones, I mean, are just it's just a parade of it all the time, you know. But yeah, no, that comes. To me, the root is typically there's some kind of communication issue. Something's happened and the communication's broken down, and you're going to go get that communication and that what you're needing from someplace else.
Yeah.
And now with social media, with the internet, it is so much easier to go get that from someplace else. And it's just, you know, it's the bane of my existence right
Oh,
now in some ways.
wow. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I would have, but it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I just never would have thought of it, but it makes complete sense. Yeah. Do you ever see cases where you feel like this can be resolved? Y'all don't have to get a divorce.
We do. And, you know, so the family code doesn't allow me to play counselor or to
Okay.
tell them I can't divorce you. But I do. I mean, I've told them when we have a hearing and they're going through, it's like, okay, why are y'all here?
Yeah.
This is not an issue that you can't overcome.
Mm-hmm.
I can't order you to counseling. I can't make you try. But, you know, look, I would encourage y'all to at least talk with each other. And so when I have those that I feel like, okay, it's not, you know, they're not going after each other.
Mm-hmm.
I try to limit what we do as far as hearings and how much I let them both talk. Because if they're talking and really, and I would have been one of the chief offenders of this when I was a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
When their lawyers get involved and they start arguing what they have to, which that's their jobs,
Right.
you know, any chance of reconciliation goes away in those cases. So
Yeah.
I try to, okay, let's, you know, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? And, you know, that way I'm limiting what the lawyers are doing and arguing about the other person. And sometimes it happens. We get probably a fair amount of cases that we'll do a temporary hearing and then they call back in a few months and say, okay, we're dismissing it, we're reconciling. You know,
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes true love conquers all.
Sometimes it does, Judge. Okay, let's talk about child custody and child support cases. What do you use as the most important factor when determining child custody cases?
You know, that's a hard one. It goes back to that best interest standard.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, a lot of what I do, when I have new cases that come in, be it a divorce or a custody case, and there's no prior orders.
Okay.
Depending on the age of the children, and as long as there's no abuse or neglect, what I've ordered a lot has been a 50-50 temporary order. And so they're either doing a week-to-week or some other kind of permutation that gives them 50-50. And I've told the lawyers and I tell the parties, I'll be honest with you, I'm doing this as a tryout. We're going to see who's going to put the best interest of this child or these children first. And from my perspective, it's kind of a win-win. Either we put a 50-50, some kind of co-equal sharing arrangement in place, and that child's going to have the benefit of both parents a lot, or one parent's going to show me that they're going to step up and do the right thing for this child, and the other one's going to show me, no, I'm still too mad at the other party, or I'm not going to try and co-parent, and it makes it much easier for me to make a decision. So I've done that a lot, and it's, kind of knock on wood, it's been pretty successful so far. Kind of a mix where either the parties realize, all right, we're gonna work on a custom schedule that is always better. I tell parties all the time, anything you can agree to is better than what I'm going to come up with. I don't know you. I don't know your children. I don't know I'm going to get a 2-hour snapshot, of your lives. And I can only do with that what I can do with that. Anything the two of you come up with is going to be better than what I do. So it forces them to either try and work, out some things that'll be better for their children, or it shows me this person cannot set aside their anger, their enmity for this other person, and do what's best for this child.
Right. You know what I was thinking about? That I'm getting to my next question, Judge. In the Bible, not trying to make anyone religious here, but in the Bible with Judge Samson, and maybe you know where I'm going with this, where it had the two mothers that came with the child, and they both were like, I'm the better mother, and he was like, okay, well, let's cut the child in half. And then...
And the one that says no, she can have her. She can have the child. I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't bring the religion, but there is a certain amount of that. I mean, that's a truism. Whoever is willing to show that they're not going to be selfish and they're going to do what's right for this child, that typically shows me who maybe the primary conservator should be.
Absolutely. What do you do when parents come in, whether it's the mother or the father, and they try to weaponize the child or the children?
That typically does not work out very well for them. So I have a couple pet peeves, and I'm going to get to these relate to your question. So I have a couple pet peeves when I'm in there. When people say my child, and I always try to correct them. I say, whose child? My daughter, my son, whose? Until they finally catch on, it should be ours. Because it took two of you to make this child.
Right.
And when they keep saying my, what I tell them is, okay, that's a ridiculous statement, because it means either you figured out how to procreate a child without someone else, which is impossible, or you've reduced this child to a possession, both of which are insulting to me. And then they if they keep doing it, I have a little clip from Finding Nemo that I have on my computer. The seagulls?
Yes.
Mine.
Yes.
And I play it. And I said, this is what you sound like to me. And they finally, but that's a pet peeve. And when they do, if you're making allegations that this person has abused this child, and I'm not minimizing childhood, but you're trying to turn something that was discipline or that you agreed to and acquiesced to while y'all were together, but now this is a danger to this child. Okay, have you called CPS? Have you called the police? No, I haven't. All right, well, you're trying to turn something into what was your parenting, and I'm not, again, not saying abuse as parent, but you're trying to turn something that might have been discipline into abuse to turn it against that person. And so whoever, and I've got kind of an unofficial rule, if someone is going to lie, is going to make those kind of allegations and they're unfounded, you're probably not fit to be the primary conservator.
True.
And so that's how that kind of works out. And I've let the lawyers know, hey, if there is legitimate abuse, that needs to be brought to my attention, and I promise you we will deal with that. But you better make sure your clients understand if they didn't view that as abuse, but if it was just discipline, if they agreed that they were going to do corporal punishment in the past,
Right.
and and somebody spanked the child, and now you're saying, oh, they're just this horrible abusive person. Okay, yeah, you're weaponizing that child, and that is, to me, one of the most horrible, detrimental things you can do to a child.
Absolutely. Because the child, regardless to how young they are, they feel that, they know that's going on.
Yes, they do. And the other part, they just want both their parents.
Yeah.
Now, if a parent truly is a danger,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I will be the first one to step in front and take that bullet and make sure that
Right.
that child is not around that other parent. But, what I tell them a lot is, hey, you picked this person. Your child didn't pick this person,
Mm-hmm.
you did. And this person is now your co-parent.
Yes.
Is the mother or father of this child. And yeah, they may make some mistakes, and nobody's perfect, and there's some, if they're a danger, yes, we're going to deal with that. But if they're not legitimately a danger, don't take that person out of that child's life, because all you're doing is harming that child.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice, Judge, would you give parents that are navigating the child custody situation?
It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Yeah.
If you have a custody case, regardless of what your feelings are about that other person, that case is not about you. Now, yes, you're going to have your baggage and what
Right.
comes into it, and that what that person may have done as a parent in the past. Yeah, that's relevant. All that's relevant. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to put that behind you and focus on what's best for that child, not what's best for you.
Right.
or what might feel good sticking it to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard. I get it. I totally get it. I mean, that it's easy for me to say it from the perch up there.
Right.
But it's just getting them to understand it, that, hey, it's not about you, and at the end of the day, if y'all continue to fight, you continue to do this, and your children see it, they're going to be the ones that suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Does your court handle child support payments also?
No. So the court orders what the child support amount will be
Okay.
based on whoever is going to be obligated to pay their income, but all that is handled through the Attorney General's office or privately.
Okay. And you know what? This is me with an unconscious bias. I was about to say it. I was going to say, do men always hate you during that time? Because I was thinking only men are charged with the child support.
And again, to be fair, it is typically most. But,
Yeah.
hard to say. Probably a lot of
Yeah.
them. The ones that get to me are cases that just, there's a lot of bitterness and anger related to other things. And them being angry at the child support is just a symptom of other stuff. Most of the child support cases settle because our family law bar here is really good.
Okay.
And they're able to tell their clients, okay, this is the law. Child support is nothing more, it's a formula.
Yeah.
There are some provisions and there's some things where we can either increase it or decrease it depending on the circumstances. But for the most part, it is a formula. Whether that's right or wrong, I have no opinion on that. That's what the legislature has given us. But, the lawyers do a pretty good job of telling their clients, this is what the number is going to be.
Okay.
And so, the ones that it gets to me, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You want to put it on me, that's fine. But I'm not taking your money.
Right. I'm not getting it.
But even going back to when I practiced, what I told my clients all the time is, okay, you're mad because you're going to pay $1,500 or whatever. Do you know what it takes to raise a child? I get it. You don't but you get custody and you have that kid in your house, you're going to pay infinitely more than whatever it is per month.
Yeah.
So, I try to diffuse it whenever that happens, but it is what it is. And, it's one of those, I've got broad shoulders, and if someone's mad at me, I
You can take it.
I can take it.
Let's talk a little bit more, Judge, about the emotional impact of what it is that you do. Do you feel like, I don't know if it would come through law school or mentorship, but do you feel like judges in family court receive enough training and support for the emotional part of the job?
I saw that question when you sent it, and that is a wonderful question, and I did kind of ponder that a pretty good bit. I would say, as far as training, unfortunately, no. I think it's more just kind of your learned and your shared experience, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, as a lawyer, hopefully you've dealt with enough of these
Right.
that you can have some empathy, you know, for what people are going through, and be able to provide some kind of emotional support or understand the emotional impact that these cases are having on people. But yeah, it is a system, so to speak. I don't think that the state really does a lot of, you know, specialized training on that. I will say it looks like they're getting better. Some of the programs that we do and some of the training, there is a little bit more of that, but not specifically, you know, kind of into the psychology or the emotion, you know, emotional impact of these. But I do think the state's trying. But I will say most judges that do this do family law. They were family law practitioners before they got on the bench, and I think you have to have a certain makeup or the ability to at least try to understand people's problems. You know, in some of the other courts, you can be completely detached and not, you know, I'm not going to worry about, you know, that's fine. If it's a car wreck or a contract case here, you've got to understand, okay, yeah, this person is just going nuts, but here's why.
Right.
You know, here's why. And yes, they're upset, but here's why. And okay, what can we do about it? How do we try to diffuse that, you know, so that we don't have a huge problem down the road?
Yes. How do you balance legal and emotional when making a decision?
You know, it's one of those, you just know it when you see it, so to speak. I mean, look, everything we do is predicated on the law and the facts. We're required to do that. But you have to look at, you know, they're not just parties, they're people, you know, and they're not just, you know, it's not just children, it's kids, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And you know, you've got to look at, yes, this is what the facts are, this is what the law is, but I think you have to be able to deviate from that when there are circumstances that require it, you know, be it emotional issues or physical issues that have taken place. But just understanding, you know, kind of going back to what I told you, there is no one size fits all. There's not. And you just have to me, you have to be flexible, and you have to understand, you know, every child and every circumstance is different. And, you know, what worked. And I did it as a lawyer. The lawyers here do it. It's like, okay, well, last week when you had this, you did this, and now you're doing something different. It's like, okay, but you didn't have this element or this aspect, and you're, you know, and so it is. It's just there's always going to be a lot of moving parts. There's always going to be some individuality, and if you treat them cookie cutter, oh boy, it's just it's you're not going to do right by anybody.
Are you seeing changes as far as like judgments that are coming down in family court as opposed to maybe 5 or 10 years, like maybe some different experience? Let's try this. Let's look at doing this.
Yeah, you know, I think going back to I think there is a higher prevalence of dads getting custody.
Right.
That's a trend, and I think the other is a trend towards, like we talked about, more custom possession schedules. So what the family code gives us is, you know, you can deviate from it based on best interest, but they give you a standard, and unfortunately that's the word,
Right.
standard possession order, first, third, and fifth weekends, Friday at 6, you know.
Right.
And then there's an expanded version of that, but it's very regimented, it's cookie cutter, and that doesn't always work for people, especially in our area where you have a lot of shift workers. That
Right.
If there's a first, third, and fifth schedule, that doesn't fit for them. You know, so you have to be able to modify it around when that parent's going to be available. But the other would be, and the other that I see is doing custom schedules that are more, maybe it's not a 50-50, but it's not that standard schedule. It may be something that works better for these parents and that child. And I do think there's more of a trend to that. There are, the last couple of years in the legislature, there have been some groups that are trying to push for a presumption of 50-50 custody. Can't give an opinion on that. As judges, we're not allowed
Right.
to. But that's something that in the last 5 to 10 years, there has been a lot more emphasis for. And, whether that'll happen at some point in the legislature, I don't know. But it keeps coming up. And it keeps coming up because it's an issue that I think more courts are having and more parents are trying out. So we'll see where that goes in the future.
And I know you can't have an opinion on it, but I'm just going to throw my opinion out here, Judge. I don't know about 50-50 because even in marriage, you don't have 50-50.
I hear you, and I agree. And it's, but it goes back to that individuality.
Exactly.
And, it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And a lot of it is what they've done in the past, the ages of the kids, what activities those children are in. So yeah, there's a ton of moving parts, and I think your argument and your sentiment is part of why that hasn't maybe passed in the legislature. But there are, I think continue to make the groups that are advocating for that continue to make some strides and some counters to that. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, it depends, and that's. As a lawyer, I think we probably go to law school to be able to say those two words more than anything. It depends. Well, can we do this? Is this legal? Well, it depends. It depends. And so that adage definitely applies to custody and doing anything custom is, well, should we do this? Well, it depends.
Yes.
And it depends. There's just a lot of factors that go into that. But I hear you and don't disagree with you on that.
Right. As a judge in family court, what do you wish people knew about marriage before they got into marriage?
Oh, man. It's not easy.
It is not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy. And going back to what it's not about you. That holds true when you're talking about your children, but it also holds true when you're talking about your spouse and your marriage. It's not, once you get married, it's not just about you. It's about the two of you and the relationship. And, and you have to, there may be things that I've done in the past or I want to do, but you have to look at the impact it's going to have on your spouse and your family. And I think, as a young kid, getting married, I was 21 when I got married.
Wow, that is
I didn't know all that. But hey, it's you got to learn and evolve with each other and communicate with each other and be able to understand that I can't just make a decision without determining the impact on my spouse. And I think there's that's I think a lot of what leads to people being down here. Is you get married and you don't change with each other. You don't take into account the impact that you're having on the other person, and it just it snowballs, and then here they are.
And here they are in front of you.
In front of me.
In front of you. Let's talk a little bit about what you think are like some qualities and characteristics needed to be a judge in family court. What would you say are the most important?
Well, I'd say one, experience in family law. You have to have tried these cases. You have to have represented these clients, and be able to understand the facts and circumstances that they're bringing to you. Knowledge of the family code and procedure. But the other one I think would be empathy, and being able to understand that hey, like I said, they're not just. Parties are not just clients. I mean, these are people. These are people, and these are their lives. And we're dealing with what they hold most dear to them: their family, their children, their money, their life, their house. And you got to, again, when I get people here and I can tell they're angry and they're upset. All right, I know why. I need you to calm down.
Right.
But I get it. I mean, everything in their life is in turmoil at that point. So I think it's just having some empathy to understand, okay, this is why they're like they are, and what can I do to help put them in the best position possible going forward.
Do you think judges in family court are helping to shape society's ideas when it comes to family and children?
Shape it, I don't know about that, but I think we do have an impact on what happens in society, and I'm not trying to, not in a God complex
Right,
kind of way.
absolutely.
I mean, look, if you want to get down to it, what's the fundamental unit in society? It's the family, and that's what we're dealing with. And so I think, I don't know that I'd say shape it as much as we maybe see the symptoms of what happens here. If society isn't valuing marriage and isn't valuing relationships, we're going to see more people, and we do. And what is it, a 50% divorce rate?
Yes.
And so we just see what society's bringing to us. And so I think our obligation, and not to be more self-important, but than I am, but I think we can kind of help societally if we're able to have those families. They're not going to be intact when they leave us, but be somewhat functional as a co-parent, in a unit afterwards. That helps not having kids who are angry and lost, and that end up in front of me in the juvenile system. And so I think it's just a matter of being able to, if we're shaping it, it's more, okay, let's put these children first, and that when this case is over, have these people be in a position to talk to each other and co-parent. You don't have to like each other, tell them that all the time.
Right.
But you got to be able to at least communicate for the benefit of this child, because if you don't, I promise you that child is going to find another outlet, and it's going to have issues down the road, and that does lead to societal impacts.
Right. Okay, I just thought of this question, Judge. Have you seen like a child of divorce or child custody and then come back to you on the juvenile side?
I have.
Have you?
I have.
Oh my goodness.
Not a ton, just to be fair, not a ton.
Right.
But it does. I've had some where I've done the divorces, and then down the road, they're back when I was practicing. Hey, we're in juvenile court. Okay, and I've seen some here where we've done the divorce, and then a few months later, I've seen one of the children in front of me.
Oh.
It happens,
Yeah.
and it's you just my goal would be minimize that, obviously, but that does happen.
Oh my goodness. And that goes back to me for the emotional. I would be crying, on that bench. Like, I would just be no good to anyone. But my final question for you, Judge, when dealing with family court, what would be the one thing, if you could, that you would keep in family court, and what would be the one thing, if you could, that you would change about family court?
That I would keep? I guess what I would keep is hopefully the ability to get these parents to try to work together.
Okay.
And either through me ordering them to mediate, or kind of getting them through the process, and seeing them towards the back end of their case, and all right, you got here, you were a mess, you're angry, now y'all can at least communicate for this child's benefit, and hopefully we get more of that.
Right.
As far as what would I get rid of? That's a wonderful question. Never really thought about that. I'd probably want to get rid of maybe the perception some people have about family court, that we're all biased, and we're not there for children. We're trying to punish parents and punish fathers and mothers with child support. So if I could get rid of anything, it'd probably be the perception that we don't put forward what's best for these kids or for those families. And I get it. I don't expect, we're not anybody's favorite place.
Right.
And I get it. I do. But nobody does this because they want to ruin families. Nobody does this to get rich. I think people, the lawyers I know that do family law, and the judges that are on the bench that do it because they think they can make an impact and they can do the right thing for these people. And so, I guess that would be maybe get rid of that perception that, we're trying to, twirl our mustache and see how much chaos we can wreak, or, but no, we're trying to help. You know, are we always, and I'll be the first one to say this, and I tell people out there all the time, I'm not always going to get it right. I'm not.
Are you supposed to admit that out loud?
I probably not, but I do. I mean, because look, we're all human.
Yes.
And we're all fallible.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
If I was going to get it right 100% of the time, you know what? I'd probably still be a lawyer, and I'd charge a whole lot more.
Yeah.
You're not. It's just not going to happen. I mean, in any walk of life, in any profession.
Right.
But you hope to have more hits than misses, and just let people understand. Look, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm not trying to punish your family. I'm trying to do the best. Y'all brought this to me. You're not able to agree. I'm trying to do the best thing for you going forward.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Judge, for being on my podcast.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
This has been so eye-opening for me because I came in with these unconscious bias that I didn't even realize I had until we sat down and started talking.
We all have them.
Yeah, yes. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Crystal.
And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. You can get Judge Friesz Podcast on YouTube Podcast and Apple Podcast. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry. Consulting, so inspiring, pushing you to your dreams. You can make anything. Oh, it goes with purpose. It's time to make it happen.